Hello friends and welcome to the Patron show for February 2018. How have you been doing? We've been real busy here, even if we haven't, I keep saying even if we haven't put up a bunch of stuff, but I was preparing a list of things that we put up since the last time we talked, and actually it's probably more than we've ever put up between monthly updates. So that's good, but it feels like not much has happened because I've been mostly here on emails and phone calls and stuff preparing what's happening for the rest of the year. Kind of like last year, start of the year, people are kind of is a little bit too close to E3 and nobody really releases games or announces games right now. So a lot of the folks we talked to were kind of a little bit, they're like, we'll talk to you in a month or so. So it's been an interesting month of planning stuff out. We basically have at least half of the year totally planned out and kind of creeping into the second half of the year as well. A lot of the stuff we can't talk about, a lot of it we can. So this update's going to be a bunch of stuff that's coming over the next couple of months. We've got a bunch of really good questions that I'm going to dive into as well. So let's get into it. Right, first things first, what's up on the channel? Just in case you haven't actually had a chance to go to NoClip or you haven't seen any of the updates we've done, I know they've been coming thick and fast. I've probably been spamming your emails a lot because, especially if you're in the early access tier, because that means every video we put up, you got 2 emails about it. And I've seen comments on those and sort of generally on Patreon slide off. Whenever I put up ones for the Q&As, we get loads. But whenever I'm doing the update videos, update posts, they kind of slide off a little bit. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that if you don't care about seeing some of those. I've had people say that everything that goes up, they want to know about it on Patreon because maybe they don't follow me on Twitter, which I don't blame them for. All I do is complain about shit. Or they don't have their YouTube sub box sometimes goes weird or something, so they want to have everything on Patreon. If that's the case for you or not, let me know. But sorry if we've been spamming, especially with the sessions, because so much has gone up. So since the last time we talked, we had a load of NoClip sessions went up. Shout out to Jeremy Jane, who edited basically all of the ones that have gone up since December. We had our Harvey Smith interview go up about Deus Ex. We had Ricardo Bear and Rafael Conatonio talking about Prey. We had Samantha Cook on about her game Anamorphine and sort of the larger conversation about having mental health, or depicting it rather, in video games. We also had Ian Hamilton from GAConf talking about accessibility, which is something we're going to be doing a lot more stuff on deeper as well in 2018. So all of those are up. We also put up the extended cut of our interview with John Gonzalez, who is the narrative director at Guerrilla Games. He's also the gentleman responsible for writing much of the story on Fallout New Vegas. So that was a very interesting chat. And also Mateus de Jong, who's the creative director, the sort of game director actually rather, on Horizon Zero Dawn, talking to him about sort of the broad conversation about design of that game from its inception, from the early days of it all the way to when it got launched as well. So I think we're probably going to cut off the extended interviews there. We do have other stuff. There doesn't seem to be a crazy thirst for some of the other things. There's 1 or 2 others that I kind of feel might be interesting for Horizon fans. We were pretty good about getting most of the good stuff in, which is also the problem we had with the Witcher stuff. There's a question about that actually, I'll get to later. So I'm interested in what you think. Would you like to have more of those extended interviews? One of the things that I battled with a little bit, and sort of January was a test case for, was trying to get see if the channel reacted to us posting a lot of non-primary content, like non-doc content between the sessions and all the extended cuts. Because obviously I want people to keep their notifications on and be happy whenever we post anything. So let me know what you think about that, whether or not we've done too many or too much in a bunch, or whether you'd like more of those extended cuts, because yeah, we've got a bunch of them lying around and we're happy to share them as long as people don't think we're flooding the channel. Another thing I want to talk to you about is growth. We never really talk about this. I don't really talk about the numbers of the videos all that much, but I thought it might be interesting to share some of the sort of the ideas that I have, or thoughts that I have coming away from growth, looking back at all over 12 months worth of content and seeing how our sort of views go. Our videos have been doing really well. Most of them obviously get really big bumps in the first week that they're up. The longer a series we do, the longer that bump sort of is. So for instance, the Final Fantasy stuff, we sort of get a lot of people on the second video who learn about it, go back and watch the first one. The Witcher doc is a good example of that, so is Doom. And then the Horizon was kind of a test case to see, okay, if we do one of them what does the tail look like on that? Because some of the ones we did, for instance, back this time last year, were Rediscovering Mystery. Some of them were very popular and then dropped off, like say Frog Fractions, and other ones like The Witness have actually kept getting views. So generally now, when we sort of look at the numbers on this stuff, essentially all of our main docs have at least had 100,000 views. The only two that fall short of that is Frog Fractions and Frog Fractions 2, which I'm not surprised about because they're super weird games, which obviously a lot of people haven't heard of. The first Frog Fraction doc is somewhere around 95,000, I think, so it's about to crest. Give it another 6 months, it'll probably be over, because that one's pretty slow. And then the Frog Fractions 2 one's about 60k. We had a lot of people, the second video is often there's a bit of a fall off. Also, a lot of people didn't watch that because they were going to play it when we put it out. So I'm not really surprised about that. But everything else has at least done over 100k, from the GTA Hillbilly video to the John Romero one. And then most of the big ones have at least done 300k, like say our doc on The Witness. The Final Fantasy stuff has done gangbusters. I think one of them is at 500,000 now. And then on the top end, we've almost had our first million view doc, which is the first part of the Doom Resurrected series we did back in, was it December or November? I always forget. I think it was December of 2016. So what we're seeing is that there's obviously this big bump. The ones that get the most, it's similar sort of YouTube stuff, the ones that get the most views tend to have a pretty good tail on them, but none of ours really plateau. We're seeing like constant views on a lot of them. A lot of these people are watching them way after the fact and subbing off of those as well, so it's not just the new videos that are getting people to sub. And all of this sort of combines towards a really healthy upward subscription growth we're seeing. We have bumps. The Doom doc is a really good one, where we went from like 35,000 subs to closer to, I think it was 87,000 or something. The Final Fantasy docs were another one. The Witcher series was definitely a big one because we had 6 docs. All of those have done over 100,000. Some of them have done 300,000 or more. We had a bunch of those landing at this. We were basically on the front page of Reddit Games for like a month, depending on which docs were there. So it's really cool. We're currently standing at 206,000 subs, and it wasn't too long ago I was putting up the video about us getting that little plaque for 100,000 subs, back before the Witcher stuff came out. So it's been really exciting. And this year we've got a bunch of big projects coming out, which I really think are going to get us up over the sort of the next couple of... we won't get another medallion or thing until we hit 1 million, so that's probably quite a while away. But when I look at our other people within this space, and I look at some of my favorite YouTube channels in the past and how well they've been doing, and the growth that they have, we're doing way better than I actually expected. Like I didn't realize just how well we're doing in comparison to like some of the biggest channels I think in the world. Like Giant Bomb's got 230,000 subscribers. Like Kinda Funny I think is around the same as well. And we're on course to actually get over those in the next couple of months. So it's kind of crazy. When I looked around, I was like, oh, we're actually doing like super well. And that's really good for me, because I feel like then we can put up videos about accessibility, and we're actually reaching a fairly large audience of people who may or may not have been interested in that beforehand. And I take everything with a pinch of salt. I try to watch everything, but seeing the amount of thumbs up and thumbs downs on those videos, and seeing people, you know, get presented with something that, you know, like the mental health video, for instance, that they might not necessarily be into, is really gratifying and cool. So it's been a good 17 months now, maybe 18. 17, I think we're still under that. And I'm looking forward to adding some really cool stuff to our portfolio this year, which will make us grow even more. So I just want to thank you again as patrons. You people are at the forefront of helping get our stuff out there in front of people. Obviously, you fund everything we do, so that makes a massive difference as well. And I just wanted to share some of that with you, because one of the things that you are most exposed to is the patronage and the number of patrons, and that can often tell a different story to everything else. Although we've been doing really well there, our Graphtreon graph is one of the healthiest out there. We've had growth, and we've stayed within the same sort of like 500 patron delta, going up and down for over a year now. So it's healthy and good. And there's some questions about that later, so I'll leave more of that until later on in this patron video. So, next project. In case you didn't know, we're heading up to London, Canada, to talk to the folks at Digital Extremes about Warframe, which is a really interesting project. It's one that I've been talking to Doug Perry about for about a year now. We had a meeting at GDC and we've talked on and off about doing something with DE. This year felt like a good year. Digital Extremes turns 25 this year. Warframe turns 5 years old as well in March. We're shooting this in just a couple of weeks' time. This will be up in March. It'll be a fairly quick turnaround, sort of like the Horizon doc was as well. And it's an interesting one because it kind of reminds me of the Final Fantasy story in that the people who know about this game and how the crazy journey it's kind of gone on know a lot about it, and then there's a lot of people who like Warframe. Like, I've heard about this game. It sounds like 10 other games that have the word war in it, or I'm not really sure which one. Is that the free-to-play one? Is that a strategy game? So I'm really interested to be the sort of first folks to tell the sort of story of this weird game that was, you know, it was Dark Sector, or it was a game and then Dark Sector became it, and then they launched it and it was not very good, and then they ended up becoming, you know, one of the top 10 games on Steam for basically 3 years now. Especially with the history of that studio. Digital Extremes are, I mean, they helped Epic make Unreal Tournament. Like, the original Unreal idea came from the folks at DE. They worked on the franchise up until, I think, Unreal Tournament 3. They helped Irrational with Bioshock. They made The Darkness 2. They straight up made it. And they're also a sort of a house that does a lot of licensing games, like that Star Trek game that came out a couple of years ago. So their story, a studio that's like a contract for hire, that's had its fingers in a lot of pies, some tastier than others, is its own sort of odyssey, especially 25 years. So looking forward to getting up there, filming it. We're gonna put our mittens and gloves on. Jeremy's flying in. He has to take a bunch of flights to get there. I'm gonna drive up, and my wife is going to come too, because we thought, why not? We'll make a road trip out of it. We don't really take vacations that much, so bringing her to London, Ontario for a nice post-Valentine's romantic getaway. And also because I was always against, like, you know, spending any of the funding on anything for, you know, that's not required for the doc. But the reality is we buy Airbnbs with 2 beds, and my wife doesn't need her own bedroom. So we have an Airbnb in London, Ontario. I think I booked it. It's the cheapest I've ever had. Even cheaper than Poland, which was like pretty cheap. I think I booked 3 nights in London for 250 quid, and it's a house. It's actually got 3 bedrooms in it, so she can't have her own bedroom if we have an argument. So it's pretty cheap. So yeah, we're gonna drive up on the way. If we stop off on the way somewhere and do a meetup, I'll let you know, but we'll definitely do one in London. I wish I had the date. It's in the next couple of weeks. It'll be, I think the 22nd of this month, the Thursday, is when we'll do the meetup. There'll be a post about it. But yeah, expect the story of Warframe. 1 video, big one like Horizon, going up in March. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm finally doing it. I know there was Danny's Disc Club, and I've tried it out a bunch of times, and blah, 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 blah. But the point is coming back, and I have all the information about it. You're going to have the first episode this month. You might have it actually very soon. It depends on whether or not I can get it out before we head off to Canada. It's a new show. It's called Bonus Level. It's going up on the NoClip channel. And this was the thing that I was sort of worried about and waxing and waning on for a long time, which is that the Danny Dwyer YouTube channel I use is kind of just like a dump of weird ideas, and we had a Tournament of Lies on there, which I'm sort of officially now saying that we're not really doing anymore, because I had too much on my plate and I had to really cut down on what was important, mostly because of my mental health, to be honest. But putting Danny's Disc Club up there was like a cool exercise in like how this could work, but ultimately I want everything I do to be under the NoClip banner. And the thing that was stopping me from putting it up on NoClip was that I wasn't really putting proper resources into it. So I really feel like this project is the start of the new The Point, and is essentially going to run on as long as we keep doing NoClip based on the feedback that we get. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when I worked at GameSpot, And much of the reason why people follow my work, I believe, is that I had an opinion show, like an op-ed show that sort of ran alongside a lot of our editorial work at GameSpot called The Point, where I talked about what I thought about trends that are happening in games, flippant stuff about what I thought about games, all the way to sort of more analytical things about, you know, Skinner boxes in Destiny and the way open worlds are designed and stuff like that. And this was the progenitor to NoClip, and that it was the thing that sort of got developers to open up to me and then want to do projects like the Story of Overwatch stuff and our Witcher series we did back before The Witcher was released when I was at GameSpot. So it's kind of the thing that got me known. And I got a little bit burnt out on it and wanted to just interview developers for a while, which is what NoClip was. And I want to continue doing that, and I think the work we're doing here is really important and people are enjoying it. But also I have that urge to get back into the op-ed game. So you're going to be getting bonus level. We got this fancy new graphics, which you can see on screen now through the wonder of Esteban, who's doing this all. He's editing in real time. It's fucking amazing. Which Shabalo, Sarah Bennett, who edited UK Amazing Motion Graphics artist, made for us. Sort of similar writing style to The Point. I'm putting a lot more time into the scripts. I've written like 7 of these scripts and never made them, but I have one now. A little bit of a different shooting style, a little bit more involved, sort of a lot more like some of the YouTubers I like out there who I've been following for the past couple of years. So you will get that if you're a patron and you're watching this. If you're in the $5 tier, you're going to get it before everyone else does. We have an early access tier for all the rest of the stuff, but when it comes to bonus level, everyone who's in the $5 tier will get it before it goes public. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much to everyone who's been asking to bring The Point back. I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope our subscribers enjoy it when they see sort of op-ed editorial stuff on what is essentially a documentary channel. I'm working hard to make sure that transition is well received, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, why not? Didn't want to die alone anyway.
Zombies had timed melee swings that could be easily countered with a crowbar. Vortigaunts charged up to shoot a powerful blast of energy at the player, but this could be countered by rushing them with a shotgun before they had time to fire. The headcrabs were there to teach you how to aim the pistol. The hound eyes had no projectile attack, and so helped you practice how to move and shoot at the same time. The alien grunts had homing weapons that fired at you when you were in sight, so the best gun against them was the Gauss gun, which mirrored the charging attack of their Vortigaunt friends. And of course, the pièce de résistance, the Marines of Half-Life. They ran around frantically trying to flank you while throwing grenades and stopping to shoot. Notice that? They never run and gun, they always plant themselves before firing. So, trip mines could be used to cover your flanks, while one well-timed shot with the crossbow, a weapon basically useless against moving targets, could drop a stationary marine in an instant. This is how shooters used to work. As players, we evaluated the strengths and weaknesses of our enemies in real time. We looked at the layout of the level, and through deductive reasoning, we came away with strategy. We decided which guns to use and why. Shooters, like fighting games, like RPGs, were strategic. They were more than just a shooting gallery that rewarded quick reflexes. Most of the shooters I played as a kid rewarded logic too. And as good as it feels to outshoot an enemy, outsmarting an enemy is far more powerful.
All right, we got a couple of more videos coming in from the NoClip session stuff that we didn't get finished. Jeremy Jane just gave me a copy of the interview I did with Adam and Becca Saltzman, who run Finji. They're the folks who made Cannibalt, and they're working on Overland. They publish a bunch of games. One of them was Night in the Woods. We had a really good chat with them about the launch of Night in the Woods, which had happened a couple of days before we talked to them at GDC. The game has since just been launched on Switch as well, so it seems like a good time as any to put that up. So that's a really good chat, sort of all about the QA process and some really fucked up bugs they found when they were shipping that game, when they were QAing that game. And then the last one we have is our interview with Zoe Quinn, which is a sort of a chat about her favorite FMV games. It's a really good interview. I'm really interested to see what the reaction will be. I'm sure we'll get dumped on by a bunch of folks who, you know, there's still that hate parade for her and her work. I've always been sort of like dragged into that conversation a couple of times, mostly because I stood up for her a number of times, and mostly that was based on the fact that I had made my first ever sort of documentary per se was about games and depression, and it was based on Depression Quest, which was a game that she made, which was the sort of the start of the weird thing that ended up turning into the harassment stuff and Gamergate and yada 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 yada. So it was great to. It was the first time I've like properly interviewed her. We'd like hung out once or twice in the past at GDC. I think only once actually. So it was cool to get her in and talk about her work. I think it's a really good interview. I'm, interested to see what the reaction will be. I learned a lot about not just FMV games, but why she makes the types of games she does. The way in which the games we play as kids influence the type of games we are interested in. And when you find out why she makes these weird sort of games, it makes total sense when you realize the console that she ended up growing up on. It's real fucking left field. So looking forward to getting that out there. We'll maybe have a little bit more moderation on that one than usual. We'll see what happens. But expect that as well in the next couple of weeks.
And we get this email, and they're like, hey, so I was playing through, I was right at the start of the game, and I went, I got to the main character's house, and I went down, I talked to this person at this thing, and it unlocked this, and then I hopped across the things, and I talked to Greg, who's one of the other main characters, and he had this garden gnome, and he threw the garden gnome off the roof, and then the game crashed, and I can't get past it. Can you help me fix my save file or whatever?
Okay.
It sounds like totally normal bug report, except that scene hasn't been in the game for 2 years.
What?
That's part of the original
That's from the-
2014 E3 demo.
Oh no.
Yeah, and we're just like,
How the hell are they finding this?
and it's on PS4.
You're like, is this email from 2 years ago?
Yeah, what's going on? And we haven't had a whole lot of sleep. We're like currently on this train in the middle of nowhere. We're just going like,
How do they find this, and how do they find it on PS4?
Right.
Of all
yeah,
the
'cause they
places
don't
to
have,
find it.
like even if we left in debug keys somewhere.
Yeah, somebody
you know,
could maybe
like that we
find it.
missed.
Yeah.
We got almost all of them, but like somebody pressed the wrong thing, and then the thing got
And,
messed
yeah,
up.
they
But it's on
messed up
PS4.
the-
We don't have debug keys on the gamepad. They were all keyboard debug keys. Finally, they go, oh my god, you can have keyboard on PS4. They have those little chat keyboards.
Right.
That you like put on the controller, and if they mashed the thing and they were in the wrong scene and it did the thing, we think it might have been able to reset it, and it goes into haunted night in the woods mode and starts playing stuff from 2 years ago. And we're just like, all right.
Nuts.
Yeah.
A couple of other projects we're working on. Some we can talk about, some we can't. And I'm probably this will be the last time I probably talk about some of these for a little while. So if you're interested at all, listen up. The first one is Project Lambda. Half-Life turns 20 years old in November of this year. I want to do something about it. It's my favorite game ever. I'm not sure if you can see Lamar there. There he is, the head crab. He's just hanging out. He's probably out of focus. I don't know. I'm a massive fan of this franchise. I can play both games start to finish in my mind, or at least I could when I was in school. I absolutely adored them, and I want to do something to celebrate these games. The problem is Valve. And their sort of reticence to maybe, they're pretty closed up, and they also have their own documentary team who made the awesome free-to-play and a bunch of other stuff that gets sort of put into a lot of their event coverage. So it's a difficult one. I've reached out to a bunch of people. I've reached out to my friends in the Counter-Strike community about getting involved. A lot of them seem receptive to it. I reached out to the Black Mesa devs. They're super up for doing something as well. So I feel like we're going to do something. I don't know what it is. It might just end up being a deep dive on Black Mesa. It might end up being something a bit bigger about Steam and about Counter-Strike and esports and digital downloads and all the ways in which Valve have sort of changed the way we play games in the 20 years since Half-Life came out. But we're sort of working on it. It's our long-term project for a year. I've also had a bunch of people reach out to me with sort of hints and contacts around the industry that can help me do this. So thank you so much to everyone who went to noclip.video/contact and used that form to send me stuff. I really appreciate it. We're hunting down a bunch of those leads, and that's sort of going to go on in the background for a while throughout the rest of the year. We also have some other big projects that we sadly just can't talk about at all. Some of our most exciting stuff coming in 2018 I would absolutely love to tell you about, but I simply can't. And this is sort of new territory for us in a way, in that usually what we've done before is go from one project and then announce the next project, and we don't really give that sort of long-term projection. This year I'm trying to do more long-term projects that we spend like maybe 3 months or maybe 6 months on. So what that means is a lot of this stuff is stuff that we can't talk about ahead of time, and also means that there's like maybe a little bit more of a gap in our schedule. This actually, now that I think about it, it's probably about the same as last year. Just we put out so much at the end of last year that it feels like we're slowing down. It'll seem like there's less happening because stuff is just going to come out of the woodwork because I won't be able to telegraph it ahead of time. So I just want to let everyone know that we're working really hard on some really cool stuff, and just bear with us. Give us like a couple of months, let's say, and you'll start to see some very exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, which then we'll be able to share all the goodies about, and we'll have loads of Patron bonuses and goodies and behind the scenes shit that no one else will be able to get access to, and they'll all be frothing to get access to. So thank you so much for all your amazing support in 2017. I think we had a pretty cool year. We put out a bunch of really good projects. Final Fantasy was awesome. The Witcher was great to have a big retrospective. Horizon to finish off the year. All the indie stuff earlier in the year, and of course the sessions. Was good fun too. Not to mention our 2 profiles on John Romero and Brendan, Player Unknown Green. So it feels like a really good year. I am more than confident that this year is going to kill it. So stick along for the journey, and you'll be very pleasantly surprised in a little bit of time. All right, questions, August answers. August is Irish for and. Esteban did a little bit of a, huh? That's what it is.
It's a little confusing.
A little confusing. Just dropping in Irish words. I don't know what the Irish for question is. I should know because it's in every exam I had. Was put the question and the answer. I just don't remember it anymore.
I can't.
And, milk is banya. There you go.
Right.
Computer is rivera, I think. Who knows? Ordinateur. It's French. First question comes from Jazz Jackrabbit. Oh my God. Did Cliffy leave you out of the box? How did you get out? He says, or she or they, I don't fucking know. I've never actually played Jazz Jack. Have you ever played Jazz Jackrabbit? No, I don't know. Are there any plans to do a documentary / series on esports? It's Spanish for sports, or anyone esport in particular. Yes and no. So to the point about the project Lambda stuff, one of our sort of ripcords in that scenario is that Counter-Strike itself turns 20 in June of 2019. It was 99 it came out. So we could do a documentary on that, and if we do that, then obviously covering the majors and covering the sort of the rise of esports that came out of that, especially for first-person esports, it's essentially the sort of progenitor for most of that. Will be a really important part of that. The only problem with that is that one of the founders, Jess Cliff, who works at Valve currently, Min Lei is the other one, he put up a game called, was it Tactical Offensive? What was it called? Something, I forget that. He put out another tactical shooter basically. Esteban will put it up on screen now. He lives in Canada, but not him. Jess Cliff, who was the other founder who works at Valve, has just been, I think, let go, or maybe he's been suspended because of charges which are of a child porn nature. So that obviously complicates the sort of dev angle on that. Sorry, aside from all that, it's fucking horrendous, and I hope whoever's involved, I hope if the allegations are true, that obviously he's brought to justice, and I hope whoever is involved, whether or not it was something he was directly in contact with, or it was what we keep seeing a lot, which is people getting caught with items of materials on their machine which they got from somewhere. Whoever was the victim in that situation is getting all the support they can. But in terms of this project, which I only sort of bring this up because I've talked about it on podcasts, and we did an update about the Counter-Strike project, it's a little bit of a spanner in the works. So I had the idea of doing something on esports and that being it. We're going to keep our eye on the sort of situation and see what makes sense over the next year or so. But Jazz, my friend, we're not going to do anything on esports in the near future, but like many things, the more time we let go without doing something in a specific area, the more people talk about it and the more likely we are to do it. So thanks for your idea, and yeah, check back in 6 months and we'll see where we are. Fraggle Rock asks the question.
Everyone is just named after media properties today. As part of the ever-hungry audience, I look forward to hearing more about what NoClip is going to produce this year. However, you have been wonderfully open and about burnout and the stress that high production values have on you. I wonder what self-care breaks you have planned this year to keep yourself sane. Yeah, I've put a lot more time into doing this. I'm feeling a lot better now. I started going to a therapist again in December. We had a break when we went home to Ireland. Myself and my wife went home to Ireland, which we're doing again for Easter. It's going to be the first time I've been home for Easter for maybe since I left Ireland, like almost like 9-10 years ago now, I guess, when I moved to England. So that's really nice. Being on the East Coast allows us to take like quicker flights. They're cheaper too, which is a big benefit. So we don't have to fly all the way from California now. We can sort of hop on a plane here at Dulles, or BWI doesn't fly to Ireland anymore, sadly, but we go from Dulles, and it's much cheaper and it's a shorter flight as well. So we can take kind of more shorter trips. So we're going to Ireland for I think a week around Easter, as opposed to before when we went from San Francisco, we kind of went for like a fortnight or something, and it doesn't really work so well when you're trying to, you know, run a business. Taking 2 weeks off is a little bit much. Bringing my wife up and having like a fun road trip up to Canada is kind of another fun one. I'm essentially not working on the weekends at all now. We have one shoot coming up next month, I think, where we're going to be shooting on a Sunday. But apart from that, I'm taking that time off. Yeah, we've got plans to take some time off later in the year around the summertime, do a little fun thing, like most people do, a little vacation. But what me and my wife are sort of mostly trying to do is explore the East Coast, like go on long weekends, maybe to, you know, North Carolina, Georgia, West Virginia, just drive kind of all over the place. Go down south a bit. I want to check out like Alabama and stuff. So yeah, and I love driving. Like I drove up to New York to do some Giant Bomb stuff last week, and you know, it was like a 4-hour drive up and down, I think, or 3.5. And I really enjoy that sort of stuff. So that's kind of keeping me well, and I'm trying to exercise a bunch more, and living out in the countryside means I can just go for walks in the woods and stuff, and it's good. Next question is from Nicholas Lovell. He asks, hey Danny, really like the style of these docs. I was wondering what docs influenced you, and do you have any recommendations for quality docs, gaming or otherwise? I always give a really vague answer to this when people ask this question. So I've prepared a list of like some of my favorite documentarians and documentaries that maybe you should go check out if you're bored or you want to watch something that also sort of influence the work that I do here. My first is Louis Theroux, part of the sort of Theroux family of writers and actors and whatnot. His cousin Justin Theroux is in The Leftovers and a bunch of movies. I love his work. He's really famous in the UK. He does a lot of sort of fly on the wall or fish out of water style interviews. A lot of them to do with American culture, because he's an equal passport holder, I think. He's British and an American citizen. And yeah, a lot of his stuff is super good about, I actually learned a lot about sort of the American judicial system and stuff like that through watching his work on crime. And he's also done a bunch of stuff like fun stuff like swingers and like NASCAR and like all this sort of weird and wonderful stuff. So definitely Louis Theroux. Errol Morris and Werner Herzog are two sort of the most like lauded documentarians, and I really love a lot of their work. The Thin Blue Line, Errol Morris, he also did that one. Was it the one he did with what's his face, Unknown Knowns and all that shit? I don't know what's his name again. That fucking George W. Bush's dude, whatever. You can go watch that if you want. A lot of political sort of about the judicial system there as well. And then Werner Herzog, of course, does everything from fucking men who live with bears to people or in caves to dragging a boat over a mountain. So if you haven't watched The Making of Fitzcarraldo or watched Fitzcarraldo itself, definitely watch The Making of and learn how Werner Herzog almost murdered, literally almost. He threatened to kill Klaus Kinski for him thinking he was trying to kill him. It was really fucked up. You should watch The Making of Fitzcarraldo. I'm also signed up to the masterclass, which I think it's the one time a Facebook ad has ever gotten me to buy something, so I'm pretty pissed off about that. But it's like a MasterCard to sponsor some sort of, it's like a auteurs sort of doing
courses are based on their work, and the Werner Herzog one is definitely worth the cost of entry, so I've been enjoying that. 30 for 30, the ESPN series about sports, is massive influence on my work. It's sort of the whole idea of no clip kind of comes from that, essentially. It's in our first ever pitch video we did, the Patron launch video. I said we're going to make the ESPN 30 for 30 of video games. Some of my favorite ones, June 17, 1944, which is the day OJ ran, and a bunch of other sporting stuff happened. It's a documentary which sort of bounces between a bunch of topics that are sort of broadly tied together with sports culture. Very well edited, a big fan of that. The Two Escobars, another favorite of mine, sort of the two deities within the culture of the country. Colombia, I think it was? Yeah, Colombia, right? One a dictator, one a football player, and the ways in which their lives intertwined, which I actually never knew about, tragically. And there's some other good ones. There's that I, Tonya movie, which has just been released. The Price of Gold is an ESPN one, which I haven't actually watched yet, but I really want to check that one out. There's so many of those movies that you'll never run out of ones to watch. Some of them are pretty, like, kind of low quality. Like, I kind of consider some of the stuff we do to be better than them. But then some of them are unbelievably, like, way better than I could ever hope to do. So it's interesting. I like watching them because you never know what you're going to get. It's like to use a video game reviewer's favorite phrase, it's a mixed bag. Aside from that, like, my favorite documentary of all time is The Act of Killing by Joshua Oppenheimer. Came out a number of years ago. Actually executive produced by both Errol Morris and Werner Herzog. Sort of considered to possibly be the best documentary ever made. A very interesting look at how war criminals justify the crimes that they do, and the without sort of, I don't want to talk too much about it, but without spoiling it too much or talking about it too much, essentially what Joshua was doing, he never made a film before, but he was there sort of working with aid groups, and he essentially got a bunch of these people who were war criminals, but they were the ones that won, in a society that sort of praised them all for carrying out these horrific attacks. And he funded like a film for them to make a film based on what they had done. And through them reenacting the atrocities that they committed, he's also creating a documentary. The whole idea of it was basically to get these people to feel remorse and be confronted by the horrors that they did. It is the most incredible documentary you would ever watch. It is staggeringly shocking. I watched the trailer. It's fucking mind-blowing. And he also did a sequel to it, which I haven't watched yet, which I want to. But The Act of Killing took him something like 8 years to put together or figure out, and it's fucking unbelievable. First-time director results. It's an absolute piece of art. Aside from that, there's a bunch of YouTubers I watch which help me in terms of film form and also in terms of how to edit videos and stuff. I never went to film school. I'm self-taught, so I don't really know. Like, I still struggle with the magic triangle. I still struggle with framing. I still struggle with lighting and all that sort of stuff. Editing is probably where I'm the most comfortable, but even then, I'm super, I'm not very knowledgeable about it, so I try and soak in as much from other people. Some of my favorite ones, Every Frame of Painting, of course. So many people follow that one. It's tragically stopped now, but you should, I think I mentioned in the last one, you should definitely check that out. Lindsay Ellis is a really wonderful film critic that I like watching. She sort of breaks down movies in terms of a lot of the cultural stuff, but also in terms of the way they're shot. I really like Red Letter Media for the same reason. I know some people, they sort of rub people up the wrong way sometimes, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. But I like a lot of their stuff that's the not so much the review stuff, but definitely half of the bag I feel like is a really good, once you've watched a movie, to go back and get an analysis of it. I don't always agree with them. Like, I really like Darren Aronofsky's Mother. I know a lot of people don't, but I love loads about how that film is shot specifically, I think, and the sound design in it. But even hearing them, I just like hearing how they think about it. And watching this sort of stuff, once you're doing that and then you're watching other pieces of work, you definitely start to, in the same way if you play games and you know a little bit more about game design, you're getting into that, you start to look at games a little bit differently. You do the same with movies and TV. And right now I'm watching the second season of Fargo, and it is probably the best lit TV show I've ever seen. It's absolutely incredible, and colored, which we're probably kind of in the same thing. So I'm really enjoying that based on that as well. So just surrounding yourself with a bigger sort of repertoire of information is can actually make you enjoy things more or less, actually, as it turns out. And then some other sort of game related ones that I really love. Mark Brown, of course, does incredible work with Game Maker's Toolkit. Incredibly popular YouTube channel, fairly young as well, and he just does amazing work. Super Bonnie Hop as well, of course, and I'm not really sure if he put him in with games. He's kind of games / like liberal, like breaking down right-wing people's sort of weird ideas about the left. Is H Bomber Guy. I think the way he shoots and writes his scripts are some of the funniest shit I've ever watched. His videos are also really long. I don't know how he has the time to do it. I guess if you don't fly around the world filming documentaries, you probably figure it out. But he puts up these 40-minute videos about right-wing people thinking that leftists are not masculine because they drink soy milk, and it's just the funniest fucking shit ever. So I really love his stuff. So there's a real swath of things there you can go check out, or pick and choose what you want. Couple more questions. We got a bunch. I'm going to try and get through some of these a little bit faster because we've got loads of them. Joey Powell asked the question. Hi, Danny. In my own line of work, I'm expected to film interview scenarios, but struggle to relate to myself to the subjects I'm engaging with. Do you have any pointers on how to talk with your subjects before you begin recording? In other words, how do you go about opening up the conversation to feel a bit more casual rather than a set list of questions you had prepared? I realize that you've been doing this for a while and you simply know how to talk to the people at this point, but I'd love to pick your brain on easing your subjects into those one-on-one conversations for long periods of time. Thanks. Sure. There's probably a couple of things that come to mind. First is that when they first come in the room when we're talking to them or we meet them, I don't generally talk to them about the interview or what we're going to talk about. I kind of just ask them questions, like really easy questions about like how their day was, or something broadly to do with the game or project, or what they worked on in the past, or something fun about the town that I'm in that I didn't know about, or like what's good restaurants around here, stuff like that, just to know put them in a position where they don't know they know you're not a robot, because like they don't know, they're coming into a room to talk to somebody, and they're scared of the camera, but they don't trust you. So if you can sell yourself to somebody as not a weird person in a couple of minutes, like that's the most important thing, just to get them to relax. And then in the interview, like the first couple of questions we ask are very easy to answer questions, like stuff they don't have to think about, like where did you grow up and what games did you play, and like things that are fun answers. Like think about the questions that you would like to answer to someone, like questions you wish people would ask you, like what's your favorite game, or what games do you like more than other ones, or what's the best place you've lived, or stuff like that. Anything just to get them opening up and talking and not thinking about their responses. They're just like answering a question. And there's a massive difference between answering a question and giving the right answer. And more than anything else, I just want them to feel like they can open up and get them to chill the fuck out, basically. Aside from that, I have a list of questions. I glance at it, and I try to. There's some interviews I do where I never look at it because I kind of just know what I'm going to ask them about. I never read questions off the screen, ever. It's always a conversation. And if they bring the conversation, say I've got questions A, B, C, D, and E, and F to do. If I ask them about A, sometimes they straddle close, they get close to F, so I'll ask them about F. And sometimes then maybe they don't and they're kind of going off somewhere and I have to bring them back and ask them about B. But if I can get them to swing to one that's already close by that, then I'll do that, because you just want the conversation to feel natural or organic and not weird. Sometimes if they're talking about something that they're clearly interested in, that like I don't really have a question for, I kind of let them get it out of their system maybe, because ultimately what's a memory card? Like we're not doing this on celluloid, it doesn't cost money. So you just kind of let them blow off steam and then get the answer that you want. But largely when you go into an interview, if you've got 30 questions, find the 5 you need. And most of the other ones are probably tied into that some way and they'll rub up against them. Don't go in with like 30 questions, because they never answer fast enough. So if you're 20 minutes into an interview and you're on question 3, like for instance this video here, then you'll just end up like causing weird negative energy in the room when you're trying to like get through them. And then aside from that, I really do a lot of work to know about their work and know about their position. So an artist, I'll try to wrap my head around what they're doing as a job. I'll never pretend. If I don't know, you just ask people. Super honest, super open, and just create that empathy bridge as much as you can. Loads of eye contact. Like the way I'm doing this, absolutely loads. Just, and confidently and naturally. And if looking into their eyes is weird, then look at the bridge of their nose, or turn your face sidely, and then they won't know that you're not looking directly into their eyes. But like, create that sort of, that thing. Lean forward. Don't sit back and look at your questions over here, and then be with them in the moment. And I put the laptop on the ground in front of me so I can just do that and look at questions as I'm doing it. Hit plus and command on your keyboard so it gets blown up big so you can see it, and then just like do it. It's like a boxing fight, but you're like clapping hands. That's what it should be like, and everyone should walk away feeling really good. Next question is from Marcel Hedemand. Any plans to cover the rising Scandinavian gaming industry, things like DICE, Playdead, or IO? Their recent break from Square Enix and the future of Hitman. Love the work you're doing. It's really awesome to see the new style of gaming coverage is possible and sustainable. Love your docs. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Marcel. In the past, we've reached out to some folks up there, and I wanted to. The closest we got was Amsterdam. We could have easily just popped over to Denmark if we were able to. But they're between DICE and specifically IO was one that we were hoping to do, which didn't come together. Who knows? Maybe with Hitman Season 2, you never know. I reached out to them last year, nothing came of it, and we haven't done it this year because I just want to give them a bit of space. But for sure, I want to do something there. I'm a big fan of the Battlefield series, sort of more so the past ones. Vietnam, I was a huge fan of 1942, and Battlefield 2 as well. So I'd love to do something with DICE as well if possible, maybe on Hardline. But yeah, I feel like if we go back to Europe, that's probably, apart from the UK, there's a bunch of stuff I want to do there, the Scandinavian region is definitely where we're looking at next. The Mighty Pie asks, hi Danny, thank you for all the hard work. Can we expect extended CDPR interviews? So I've gone back and forth on this. The problem was we ended up producing over 3 hours worth of documentaries, and we trimmed all the fat. So there is more stuff there, but the interviews we did on that shoot were shorter than most of ours because we interviewed I think between that and the GOG thing, we interviewed 24 people or something, or 22 people. So originally I was going to put out extended cuts, but it's a lot of repeated stuff. Like basically all of the Marcin Nowinski chat was in the first 2 videos. Same with Adam. A lot of the graphics people we didn't have for that long. Most of Lena's one was in there. So I don't think I will. If there's a massive need for them, if anyone in particular people want, then I'm happy to put them out or put them up somewhere. I'm worried about flooding the channel basically. I have no problem with I'd love to just hand the rushes out and have people watch them if they want to. Or maybe just put them up on the podcast or something. Podcast feed on Pirate Radio, but right now there isn't any, and it's not because we don't have the time or bandwidth, it's because they're kind of redundant. If you watch the 3 hours of docs, you've watched 50% of the interviews and 95% of what we were good from the interviews. So I right now I don't think we're going to put them out. Nick Mortimer asks, hey Danny, would you ever consider teaming up with Drew Scanlon for a no-clip X cloth map team tackling a subject that covers both of your channels? Keep up the good work. Looking forward to everything no-clip puts out in 2018. Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate it. Yeah, in case people don't know, Drew Scanlon worked at Giant Bomb, which is sister site to GameSpot that I worked at. The two of us had a podcast on Formula 1, which ran for a couple of years. I'm not sure if we're doing it again this year. We'll have to wait and see. But he started his own Patreon called Cloth Map, which is essentially a traveling the world sort of travelogue channel, which looks at the culture of games within that country. So he's already done the Ukraine, which is fascinating because it's all about Chernobyl and sort of the market that's over there, and especially in Eastern Europe, the kind of thing we touched on a little bit on in the CD Projekt episode 1. He went down to Brazil, which was amazing, and did all these videos on not just the favelas, but also on the sort of underground market and the weird situation the Brazilian economy was in, where they heavily taxed imported electronics. So all of these sort of counterfeit Mega Drives and PlayStations and Xboxes were being made. So that's a really fascinating stuff, and he's going, I believe, next to Cuba to now that he can go there as an American on a passport. to check out that culture as well. So I'd love to do something with him. Perhaps I kind of feel like we've talked about doing it. I think the idea was make sure he's got a year under his belt before we do anything like that, because it's a bit of a weird project. The one that I think of is maybe going to Ireland with him and having him interview the Romeros and all the sort of indie scene that's in Dublin and stuff like that. There's a bunch of really big Irish devs as well, so I don't know. That's the one that comes to mind for me. We haven't talked about that or anything. But yeah, last time we talked about it, we're thinking we might do something, but not in the next couple of months anyway, I believe. Jeremy Peterson asks, greetings, are you willing to wrap your mind around a Monster Hunter game, whether you stream it or not, because the new one's pretty good? Dude, between that and the Dragon Ball game, I'm like, these are like series I've never played before, but I'm interested in both of them. So, I don't know, there's too many games, man. Night in the Woods just came out on Switch as well. I'm playing UFC 3, which is actually like, it's pretty solid. I like it a lot. There's too many games out right now. Monster Hunter feels to me like the Horizon Zero Dawn of 2018, where there's a lot of people talking about how good it is, but it's just so big that people are worried to jump into it. I don't really have the time to jump into a game like that right now, especially with my PUBG addiction. So I don't know if I will. Maybe I'll have time later on in the summer and I might give it a go then, but not at the moment. Jacob asks, getting Square Enix to interview over Final Fantasy was insanely cool and so incredibly unlikely. Do you think you can get Nintendo to open up in the same way? That was sort of the hope with that project, was that if we sort of had something that we could show to Japanese studios, that we were respectful and knowledgeable and sensitive and easy to work with, then perhaps we'd get other ones to open up as well. I mean, the white whale is From Software, right? Like everyone's been saying, we need to do something on the creators and the series they're in. But Nintendo would obviously be a massive one too. Breath of the Wild to me is an absolute no-brainer for NoClip to do. Open world stuff is sort of our forte at this stage. And that would be great. And the little dev diaries they put out around that game when it came out were short but really wonderful. I hear their PR is incredibly difficult, so I don't know how well we could do that. I've heard with other friends who've worked with them that, you know, they send like 4 or 5 different stakeholders along with Miyamoto for anything. So I don't know. We've not approached them yet. It's something, I feel like we did Japan last year. We're not going to this year, and then my aim is next year to get one. I think From is probably on my radar for 2019 more than anything else. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I would love to do something with Nintendo for sure. Jim H asks, really happy with the bonus level idea. Any thoughts on doing a group discussion type of show like a podcast or Twitch? So we said we're going to do the podcast or do a bit more of the podcast stuff. And then people were kind of like, I don't mind. The way this feed is now works really well. Like, so I've gone back on the podcast idea a little bit, especially because I'm a little bit reticent to start something that shoehorns us, like a Tournament of Lies, for instance, where we're sort of stuck doing it, and the way in which the schedule goes. Even if Esteban is here, like, you know, a couple of times a month, here and then working remotely a bunch as well. It's like there wasn't the feedback I was sort of not sure if expecting, but sort of like maybe looking for. So I'm interested to hear what people think. I will say that the idea of doing everything on the NoClip channel, which is kind of my idea now, it starts with bonus level. And I'm going to read the tea leaves kind of on that as it happens. The idea, the dream, is that we have like a team of people that can produce stuff to a high quality more frequently. Stuff that it's not just me editing, for instance, like the sessions, right? Jeremy did loads of that stuff. Esteban puts together this show. And we'll be working on a bunch more stuff as well in the future. So maybe. The Twitch stuff as well, I feel like, I think I was thinking about this a while back, and I was trying to think about, like, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I do lots of things, and I'm not exemplary at any of them, but being good enough at a lot of things can make something really good come together. And I've always had that opinion. But what I like about NoClip is that we do one thing really good. And I think that's why we have the sort of subscriber base we do, is because we're not trying to do 1,000 things at once. People sort of know what we do, and then they like it. So bonus level for me is like a little bit of testing the water out there, making something that's a little bit different but close enough. Expanding that outwards into other things,
we'll see how bonus level goes down and come to that question again. Justin Dodson asked the question, I know that you mentioned it on previous video and on Discord, but will you ever do a doc over the Skyrim grandma? She seems like she has an interesting story. She's been gaming on PC since the late 90s. It seems like her take on PC gaming over the years. I'd like it. Keep up the great work. I've actually reached out to her. It's something that I've wanted to do ever since we moved to the East Coast, because I think she actually lives in West Virginia. But I've not heard back yet, and I don't like pestering old ladies. So I'll probably try again. I've never reached out publicly over Twitter or anything, because I don't want to have that, like, people dogpile or anything, or be like, yeah, do it, or any of that sort of stuff. So I tried to do it privately, but I haven't heard back yet. So that'll be a fun one to do. I think that'll be a cool little profile or something. She's awesome. You should check out her channels if you haven't done so already. I'll send Esteban the link and it'll pop up here on the screen. So check that stuff out. So maybe in the future. Well, let's wait and see. Steve Fiore asked the question, hi Danny, love the games development docs you do, but also the Hillbilly Agenda doc, sorry. A few months ago, would you ever be keen on covering more fan groups and wider communities, or away from that, how some game developers engage with their fan bases? So the Warframe doc is actually going to be heavily about that sort of stuff, because a lot of the reason why that game has been successful has been about the communication stuff. So we're going to interview a bunch of people on the community teams for that. We also may interview some Warframe players. I've talked to a bunch on Discord. We've had sort of like, as part of my research, I've been interviewing people and getting like an idea of their perspective on what works and what doesn't work. So the idea is to be able to do that, but that'll certainly be part of that. But in terms of other communities, absolutely. We've loads of ideas for not just communities, but individual stories. Our accessibility doc, which I actually forgot to mention at the top of the show, we're working with Able Gamers and a bunch of other people about doing a doc on accessibility, which is going to cover a sort of a wide range of personal stories, kind of like the Hillbilly Agenda stuff. So for sure, the Hillbilly Agenda was our litmus test for how people will react to this, and how we as a production crew can kind of make that happen, because it's much more of an active story than just going to people and interviewing them about something that they've done in the past or something that they're working on for the future. So yeah, that's the start, and we're definitely going to do more of that sort of stuff. Bo V. Thompson says, good day, Danny. Good day to you, Bo V. Thompson. I'm wondering about non-disclosure agreements. Ooh. Have they posed a challenge when it comes to interviews? Do you ask about NDAs before taking on a potential subject? All the best, bud. Thank you, Bo. That's a good question. I'm used to the world of NDAs now from working at GameSpot. They've come up on a couple of different projects. The nature of NDAs is that I cannot tell you if I have signed an NDA for a certain project. But essentially any studio that we go to who is in active development on something that has not been released yet or announced yet or anything like that, will make you sign an NDA. The way in which they work is that we clarify that anything that we talk about in relation to the project that we are there to ask questions about is fair game, and anything that isn't, we don't talk about. So yes, there have been instances where we've been at studios and they've been working on stuff which isn't, you know, public knowledge yet, and we've all signed pieces of paper that basically say we won't talk about it. We probably wouldn't talk about it anyway, because then we'd never work with anyone ever again. So having a reputation in this industry is really important. The type of sensitive work that we do means that we need to have that type of understanding with studios, multiple studios. So if we burn one, you don't burn one bridge, you basically burn all your bridges. Yeah, we're used to signing those. I've said it before, when it comes to the work that we produce, excuse me, sorry. When it comes to the work that we produce, we don't let the studios have final sign off on the videos. What we give them is the rushes for the B-roll, so all the B-roll will be shot at the studio, and if they have anything that's, you know, sensitive that they don't want out there, not necessarily tied to the NDA part, because we do this for everyone, then we allow them to do that. And that could be anything from this part of the office isn't actually our team. You're recording somebody who does something else. We don't really have permission from them to do that. So do you mind leaving out this 5-second pan shot to this shot of the studio has a screen with emails on it. Can you get rid of it? And then I email back and go like, actually, we shot this in, you know, high resolution, so we can punch in actually a bit and it won't be in the shot. And then they go, that would be fine. Like, there's a lot of like back and forth like that. But the NDAs that we sign, we read, and they're not stopping us from talking about what we're there to talk about. And that's kind of how it works. And it's there's a lot of like that, and a lot of like friendlies, and people know, especially with the work that we do, they know that there is no benefit in us leaking anything because it basically totally fucks us forever. So I think that's part of the relationship that's good for us. We don't have a newsroom, so it makes a big difference. Last two questions. KP, my friend, asked the question. I'm curious to know how you handle your own and other people's expectations regarding no clip. Now that you seem to have settled in on both professional and personal level, I guess, do you make yearly estimates about when you would like to be a year from now, or do you just work from project to project and adjust accordingly? Are you happy with NoClip's current trajectory regarding patrons / funding / growth, or is it going too fast or too slow? Too fast! We're too successful! I need a drink of water, we're so successful. San Jose Sharks. Tenacity Pavelski. You think that's his name? His first name's Tenacity?
I don't think it's his
Probably not, right? Oh, I got this cup like 3 years ago. I was at a game with Mary Kish and she shouted at Eric Tay's face because they lost in the last minute. KP, to answer your question. This is probably the one thing that I work on more than anything else, and it's probably the thing I'm most sensitive about, and maybe the thing I'm most proud of, I don't know. Is that I'm constantly looking 6 months down the road. Because ultimately, patronage drops off month after month. We have a lot. I get emails every time anyone edits a pledge, or if they get deleted, pops up in the notifications. Anytime anyone joins a pledge, I'll see your name right there on the top of my inbox every single time. Or if you up your pledge, you're down it, or doing it like that. So I'm constantly watching that sort of stuff. Our patron level has been very good. A lot of Patreons go up, more Patreons go down than anything else. Ours has, like I said earlier, it went up a lot at the start, had another bump, and it's kind of gone up and wavered a little bit every now and again, but we've stayed pretty consistent, which has allowed me to sort of put money away in the war chest for big projects like Japan, which cost us a lot. Big projects like CD Projekt actually cost us a fortune because we went to Tennessee as well. There was like 6 flights involved, and 11 days or 10 nights of hiring somebody and paying for multiple hotels and all that sort of shit. Rental cars, all this sort of stuff. So that one costs a lot. And then also color grading on the other end, time spent, XYZ. So every time we have a big project, that decides to have smaller projects too. The Warframe one is actually a pretty good example of a kind of a middle project where we're only actually filming there for 2 days. I'm driving up, the Airbnb was cheap. It's a 2-day shoot, so I only have to pay less for on-time shoots, and then color grading there's not so many days. On things like, for instance, like saving money in places like that allow me to then hire Jeremy to do all the no clip sessions, so I can hire him for like, go for it. There's 2 weeks worth of editing, knock yourself out. And he pulls that all off. So in terms of the projects, I'm constantly trying to make sure that we have stuff that people are excited about coming down the line. I don't expect that every documentary is everyone's cup of tea. I'm sure there are people who never played The Witcher and Final Fantasy and Horizon, especially because it's only a PS4 game, and all that sort of stuff. So that's why mixing it up is really important. So right now we're sitting on a bunch of really cool stuff. A lot of it we can't actually talk about. Some of it we can. So it's kind of like we're letting people know we're doing Warframe, which is kind of maybe not the craziest in terms of bombast, but certainly the people who play that game, a lot of people who are interested in it, are very interested in. Do people who play Witcher games and Final Fantasy interested in that? I don't know. Maybe Final Fantasy actually because it's online, but like it's a different type of thing. Accessibility is another one where it's like I don't think people are going to get excited about that. I'm sure people who are within that sort of that space in gaming and who are interested in that certainly will be, but like the vast majority of people, it's probably something that they're coming into quite new. So when I do that, we have to weigh up the idea that
okay, we're doing something that's like not maybe going to, hopefully will be a really good product at the end, but it's probably not going to get people excited to be part of NoClip. So then what we need to do is follow that up with something that maybe is a bit more obvious, but it's super excitable. So I'm constantly thinking about that. YouTube channel growth has been really good. I'm very proud of the fact that we've crested over 200,000. My goal was to hit 200,000 by December 31st. It ended up taking another 3 weeks, I think, but we were pretty much on target for that. The bump that I had expected for the Horizon dock wasn't quite as high, but the stuff for Final Fantasy and The Witcher was, which was good. I'm aiming for to see if we can hit 400,000 by the end of this year is the idea. So we'll see how that works. Maybe we'll only get to 300,000. I have a feeling we'll probably get to 300,000 anyway, based on our current trajectory, hopefully. But yeah, I think about that a lot. And then in terms of the funding, I mean, it's really good that we are static, that we're not falling, because a lot of Patrons do. A lot of people hide the sort of money number, I think, because of that as well. And I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to keep our money number, our total up there. And although I do wonder if that is a barrier to people signing up sometimes, because they're like, oh, they're getting like 22,000 a month to make video game videos, which is 100% an okay thing to say, because we're getting 22,000 a month to make fucking internet videos. Obviously, you know, I spend as much of that as I can on productions and hire people to do everything from doing this stuff to the sessions to motion graphics. Like I don't hold back on money in any way to line my own pockets that way. But I'll be the first one to admit my quality of life has certainly gone up, especially after moving out of California and being able to live in a house, for instance. But the money stuff is interesting because, like, where do we go with the money? Like, do we start accepting advertising? Do we start monetizing the videos? Like, I don't really want to as much as I can. The thing that I think we would do is to do some sort of non-endemic sponsorship of a series, or perhaps non-endemic sponsorship of something that we then sold to, you know, Netflix or something like that. I've had people approach about funding opportunities for doing stuff and then trying to sell that to Netflix or Amazon. My issue with that is that we're a small production company and I don't want to ever take away from what we're doing on YouTube. That's kind of like a constant. I need to make sure we're always producing loads of really good stuff for YouTube and it's free and people can do whatever what they want with it. So, you know, maybe we got some non-endemic sponsorship. It's non-endemic being not sponsorship outside of your own industry. So, you know, Duracell sponsoring as opposed to, you know, what's a gaming brand? Rockstar, not the drink, the company. Like if like Red Dead 2 commercials came up on our next video or whatever, you know what I mean? What's the game that's coming? Monster Hunter ads coming out on the Warframe thing. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like that I don't want to do. I don't want to have that gaming money getting spent on stuff we're doing, because it just opens us up to all fucking manner of weird communication problems, perception problems, and I just hate advertising really a lot. So fuck that. It's everywhere anyway. And the pre-roll stuff on YouTube, I just don't think we'd earn that much money off it anyway, so I'm more than willing to take the hit on a couple of thousand. I think I projected we would have taken in an extra 10 or 15 grand maybe last year if we'd had pre-rolls. But I don't know, would the stuff get shared as much then, or would it made much more of a difference? And 10 to 15 grand is pretty good, but like it's not enough for me to really start rethinking the business model. So this year I'm thinking a lot more about the ways in which we can expand that way. If the Patreon money started slipping down, we can always pull that ripcord, but you know, we could also spend less on productions. There's so many ways you could do this sort of stuff. But in terms of the growth, I'm really happy. And the way I think about it, the bigger exposure we get, the more, like, my Twitter followers are flying up again since I started doing NoClip. The YouTube channel's flying up. So, like, people care and they're watching it. And the more they do that, I feel like the more of a conversation piece we are, the bigger our next stock gets, the bigger it all starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that type of organic growth, I think, is really good. And I kind of feel like as long as it's growing, if we keep doing this for another 2 years and stuff, if we keep doing this for 3 years and suddenly we have 1 million subscribers, then we're fucking laughing. Then it's like, it's amazing. Then if we want to monetize videos and we can do whatever we want, or we can do a really big sponsored endemic thing with fucking, you know,
Pete's cushions, and well, this will be Pete's cushion. Well, and like every video we do, it's like it's right there, and fucking it's got Pete's written on it. 1,800 cushions, and then you fucking go. I don't know. There's loads of things you can do, but like right now, who was it? Somebody said something. There's a famous line where they're like, I forget what it was in, but it's like when something's like cool, it's really it's really easy to make it not cool, and like. Getting something to be like, I know it makes me sound like a fucking old man, but getting something to be like cool is like really difficult. Getting something that people actually care about and you're not trying to like force feed them. Like I worked at a big gaming website and we were trying to get people to consume our content, please. And like we've had 2 million YouTube subscribers, but fucking there's 5,000 views in this video. Like getting people to do that stuff is like really, really difficult, to have them like bought in on what you're doing. And what I love about NoClip is that I'm not doing this for any other reason except the reason why we're doing it. And people love it for the reason why we're doing it. It's like, it works and it's cool. You can really fuck something up if you try and over-engineer it. So right now I'm really happy with how it's doing. We're gonna keep riding this train and hopefully there's more growth on the money side, but as long as the money is like fine and everything else is growing up, then I'm happy. And the last question comes from Brandon Kagan, our good friend BKG. Says, hey Danny, hope you're doing well. Simple question for you this month. How do you schedule out your day in terms of workload / hobby balance? I know you're setting up projects in editing, but how professional is it to say getting in a quick match of PUBG, getting exercise, etc.? Keep up the awesome work. Thank you as always for reading my questions. I'm looking forward to the Warframe doc. Thank you so much, Brandon. So as part of my therapy, actually, my therapist was telling me, and one of my biggest problems was setting aside the day and the work stuff. So now I work 9 o'clock in the morning. I come down. I go upstairs and I eat oatmeal. I'm on a diet as well because I put on like fucking 20 pounds in the past 6 months. And I've lost a bit of it, so that's good. But we're still working on it. For instance, this awesome Samurai Gun shirt used to be a little bit looser on me, but it's not so much anymore. So I have oatmeal upstairs. I come down here at 9 o'clock. I answer all my emails and do my stuff. I do some work, editing, script writing mostly, making sure everyone's doing all right, all the business stuff, money, tax, talking to Jeremy on Discord or whatever, or Skype, making sure he's booked up and all this sort of stuff. Then at lunchtime, I try and go upstairs and have lunch with my wife. I'll also work out sometimes at lunchtime. I've not been working out as much as I was before Christmas, but my diet is better, which is helping me lose weight, because before I was just eating whatever and then hitting the punch bag for 20 minutes. And you don't lose 500 calories by hitting the fucking punch bag for 20 minutes. And then in the afternoon, I will work up until 5 if I haven't had any like personal time. And then sometimes I just like play a couple of games of PUBG with my buddy Dennis in Ireland, or him and his brother, my friend Dale. They're on Discord and we sort of do PUBG time. And sometimes I'll play for like an hour, sometimes 2 hours. And if I do that, I'll work up until 6, just to make sure I'm not like wasting too much time. But I did realize that one of the biggest problems I had was that because I'm on my own and I'm working on my own, my work is like way more intense and like lonely in that way. So I used to think about going and playing a game for like an hour or two. Sometimes I only play for 30 minutes, but like sometimes I do play for like 2 hours with Dennis. That I used to do that, and it used to feel like selfish and non-productive. And then one of the things I was sort of, through therapy, was kind of talked about was that actually that's kind of like my only social time, because apart from that, it's just me and my wife. So if I play with my friends online and I talk to them, then, or even when Esteban comes over, right? It's like I have someone else to talk to and vibe off of and have conversations with, and then I don't take that out on my work or take it out on my family life or take it out on my diet or anything else. I'm not like frustrated in that way. So that's kind of how I'm scheduling my day. And then I stop work at 6 o'clock. I don't come down here again if I can help it, which is good. Sometimes there's like, I bought the PS Pro for the Horizon dock, so I bought my own, or actually my wife's now, PlayStation 4 upstairs, but it's in front of the TV. Sometimes I'll just like cloud save and stay up there. Every once in a while I break the rule and I do come down here, but like generally I try not to come downstairs into the workspace, into the studio once 6 o'clock is over. And then on the weekends I just don't do work. Sometimes I'll have a look at an email here or there, but I try not to do work at all. And then I come down here just to
have fun, and you know, there's a pool table there, and I'll play pool, and I'll go out in the garden, and sometimes I play with my camera in my own fun time, because like work is fun to me anyway, so I'll like fuck about with this thing and try and get better at some of that stuff. But yeah, I have a pretty regimented, like, this is how I work situation. And then when I work weekends, if they come up on projects, then I try and take a day off and spend it with my wife, like actively, instead of just like having a bum around day or whatever. Yeah, so it's been good. If you watched the Patron video from last month, I'm like super shaggy, I'm like rattled, I'm like wearing a jacket and generally like feeling pretty fucking ragged. I'm feeling a lot more chilled now. I feel better that we have like this big plan for the next like 6-7 months as well. I hope this probably hour-long video now, maybe, sorry Esteban, answers a bunch of questions and kind of gives you insight into what we're doing. I cannot tell you enough, the next year is going to be fucking brilliant. We are working on a bunch of stuff that we'll be able to talk about. We're working on a bunch of long-form stuff that I've talked about. We're also working on stuff that we won't be able to talk about until you see it. But I'm really excited about the year that's coming up. I'm more excited now than I have been probably before we did the Witcher stuff. I feel like a lot of the work we did, I was more intimidated by it and worried about it. I'm really looking forward to the rest of this year, and we're going to have a bunch of cool stuff for patrons as well. So as ever, thank you so much for being part of this journey. Thank you for your patronage. It means the world. We couldn't do any of this stuff without it, without you guys. If you have friends who don't know the channel, feel free to share it out to them. If there's any specific old docs that you like, feel free to share those out. We're going to be working to be doing a bunch more like tweets with like references to old videos to just keep reminding people that, hey, The Witness doc came out a year ago. If you haven't watched it, go check it out now. To sort of use our library a bunch more, because we've got this library. I think we've like over 6.5 million global views now on the channel, which is pretty cool. And watch time is through the roof as well. So thanks for being part of this. It's going really well. Fucking studio's looking cool. We've got cool projects coming down the pipeline. If you're in London, Ontario, Canada, check us out in a couple of weeks' time. And if you're not, stay tuned to patreon.com/noclip or patreon.com/Daniel Dwyer. I called them up. The folks at Patreon. They gave us a solid. We got a fucking redirect, baby. We're just owning them all. Buying up all those Patreon URLs. Patreon.com/fuck video games, motherfucker. That doesn't work. Maybe it does. Maybe somebody's got that Patreon. It's pretty good. But yeah, I better end this now, because the longer this goes on, Esteban has to keep editing. So see you next time. Bye!